if you've on my YouTube page, you've probably seen the video I did a few weeks ago about WEI. Right? White, entitled, and incompetent, or white, entitled, and inept, or white, entitled, and ineptly incompetent. Whichever version of that acronym works for you, works for you. But I introduced this acronym because I was really tired of listening to people talk about DEI as a way of explaining white mediocrity. And what I mean by that is for DEI hires, diversity, equity, and inclusion hires, those of us who are hired through affirmative action type programs, and of which I am one, and I proudly raise my hand to that. I ain't got no shame, because what I know is that diversity, equity, and inclusion programs were required as a hack to get around white folks' persistent racism. And this is not controversial. White Americans as a group, so many of them, not to say every single one of them to a person, but so many of them had been willful participants in maintaining the segregated nature of American race relations, that even when you had amazingly qualified Black candidates for positions, for jobs, for whatever it may be, that was traditionally gate-kept by white people would not even, as a group, not as all the individuals, as a group, don't call me with the, oh, not all white people, Blake, but as a group, they would essentially refuse to allow even for Black qualified candidates to even be considered, to even have an interview. And so affirmative action, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, these were programs that were created because other white people realized, hey, we know our brethren and our sistren. We know the nature of racism, and we know that if we don't require there to be some consideration for non-white people to get access to these positions, which have traditionally only been held by white people, not because white people deserve them, but because white people coalesced and agreed to only give them to each other. They knew that if they did not do something to disrupt that, well, then white people were always going to keep the opportunities for themselves, regardless of the fact that other non-white people were more than qualified. And I say more than qualified because as that lady I told y'all about at the end of last year, the sister who I met, she's an executive director at a nonprofit, and she had to tell her board, I'm better than all of you. She's a Black woman. She's like, I'm not equal to you. I'm better than you. Not only do I have more degrees and did better in school, I run more companies and I'm more qualified than all of you just on that basis. But I also had to survive you and all of your resistance to my over preparation for this position. So she's like, I'm better than all of you. And the sooner we realize that at this table, the better off we as an organization will be, because you will no longer have to fight your inherent resistance to my being here simply because I'm Black. Right. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion was a mandate because of white folks' persistent racism and exclusionary practices. And so we also know that diversity math tells us that we have to be twice as good to get half as far. I don't even know if that's diversity math. That might just be Black math that other groups of color have also adopted into their own analyses. But we know that we got to be twice as good to get half as far. And if far is the job or the position or the thing we're striving for, by the time we get to that position, we're 4 times better than you. Because we didn't just have to get your degrees and your qualifications. We also had to survive and navigate you and your ability to participate in this group project called racism to exclude us from getting consideration in the first place. So I introduced WEI, white, entitled, and incompetent, as a different phrase, because what was happening is people were using DEI to describe a different concept. And this different concept is you as a, not you specific, not you, righteous, but white people do not have to have qualifications to get access to these jobs. And we know this just by looking at the list of nominees for the Trump administration. 47. I guess we're going to have to find another name for him because I can't say the name all over again. It's like Voldemort. But we recognize that what was happening, that's not DEI. Like when Matt Gaetz was only a practicing lawyer for like a handful of years, but I don't even know if he even had a case that went to trial. Maybe he did. I don't know. But when he is being considered as the head of the Department of Justice, when he has a whole ass investigation. Oh, we didn't even talk about the Matt Gaetz. Charlie, we have a lot to get into. But Matt Gaetz, the report came out at the end of last year. That man is a whole ass problem. Utterly unqualified to lead the Department of Justice, credibly alleged of paying for thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of favors. And I'm not talking Lurie Daniel favors. And we ain't got to, well, I guess y'all kids ain't in the car. Ain't nobody back. Oh, my kids are back at school. Y'all kids might be at school. I try not to get too deep when the kids is in the car driving with their family to school. But a whole lot of favors of the non-Lurie Daniel favors kind of the the red light district approach, if you will. I just dated myself. But of the red light district kind, including with underage girls, which means statutory rape potentiality. That's the realm where. How does he get considered for the Department of Justice? How does Pete Hegseth, who, according to some reports, allegedly, reportedly, supposedly, according to his colleagues, would show up to work inebriated, be at work inebriating, leave work further inebriated, utterly unqualified. His own mama said, "You a trash ass man." Not in those exact words. That's my paraphrase. How does he get considered to be the head of the Department of Defense? And the list goes on and on. Linda McMahon, who does wonders for cosplaying realistic wrestling, but ain't got no reason to be in the education department. And there was some allegation that she even was not truthful about her own academic background. And then that's before we even get to the allegations about her allegedly, reportedly, supposedly facilitating the ability for people to be abused in her industry. I mean, these are not qualified people, but they're white, they're entitled, and they're incompetent. Well, friends, news broke over the break. News broke over the break that apparently there's going to be some challenges, because while the MAGA groups and the MAGA tribes were all in on no more immigrants, non-immigration, deport them all. They had signs up at Trump rallies that said mass deportations. That was their thing. Apparently, they didn't really mean it. Well, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who I like to call vivacious Ramaswamy, they did not mean it. And we're going to talk about what that means, because it's causing a lot of disruptions I didn't even know were possible. But you know how we were very concerned, and we should still be, about where 2025 is going to take us, particularly because of Project 2025 and the like. It may be that these folks end up tripping over themselves in their effort to destroy the world for the rest of us. So we got a lot to get to, a lot to talk about.